Leaders of businesses across the world say this, and that is, we want people to come back for collaboration. Before the pandemic, 40% of Americans had never worked from home. The number of employees working remotely had increased by 585%.
In that moment, when they said, we're doing the remote thing, I remember thinking like, oh God, because I supported Europe and then I had APAC and the US. And I remember thinking, I'm going to be working 24/7. Like, this is my life now. Like, I'm going to constantly be on Zoom. And I remember how much we blurred the lines of personal life and work in that moment.
Welcome to the HR Misfits, the podcast about leadership decisions most organizations get wrong, told from the HR seat that actually sees the fallout. We're business-minded, human-centered, and just bold enough to challenge the people systems that no longer work, where polished playbooks end and real leadership begins. We're the HR leaders who've been in the room when things get messy, political, or uncomfortable, leading with heart, grit, and a little bit of sass. If you believe HR should be a catalyst, not corporate theater, and leadership should actually work for humans, you're in the right place. Let's get into it.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the HR Misfits. This is Amy, Marcy, and LaToya. We are so happy to be chatting with you today about a subject that I think is popular and unpopular depending on who you talk to. And that's all about remote work, the hybrid work schedule, how in the world we got to where we are, and where we're going, I think, in the future of work as it relates to hybrid work and remote work. So we're going to dig in. We all have a lot of thoughts and opinions on this and a lot of experience. I mean, we were all working in HR when the pandemic hit, and RTO or hybrid RTO was really pushed into the everyday conversation. And when I say every day, I mean every single day.
Day by day.
Every day. Yeah, right. You got it. So let's talk about how we got here. First of all, I just want to point out too that I think we can all agree that the pandemic gave us a really quick shove into remote work. Yes. And I would say most of the world probably wasn't quite ready for that, but there were some, spaces and roles and industries that were. I read a stat here, and I just want to share because I thought this was really interesting as we kind of prepared for this a little bit. So before the pandemic, 40% of Americans had never worked from home. Mm-hmm. I mean, it doesn't sound, I thought it would be more than that, actually. So I was kind of surprised by that. Mm-hmm. By 2020, pandemic, right? The number of employees working remotely had increased by 585%. Crazy. I mean, the world shut down, but we all went home, right?
We did.
Yeah.
I remember it seems crazy now because it's like, now I think it's actually getting decommissioned, but like Zoom was not a thing 5 years ago. This is a company that was basically blew up because of the pandemic, because we needed something to make this work. I mean, before, I remember it was the rare occasion where you'd have like a WebEx meeting, which required you to type in like 7,000 numbers to connect to the meeting.
And I never could do it. I always messed it up.
I figured out a way. Well, not I didn't figure it out. Somebody taught me how to do it where it would auto dial. Marcy, you probably know how that goes.
Oh yeah, the auto dial. You didn't have to type it in.
There's a number because we were doing it, but that was still like most of those were audio only calls. Like it was very rare that you would have the concept of a video conferencing for those of us geriatric millennials. I mean, we haven't been doing that since Skype, right? So we're like, wait, what? What are we doing this? Or now we're going to do Skype at work? Like, how's this going to work? But it all seems so commonplace now, then it was, and then
big deal.
It was a really, really big deal. Let me take a step back to where you started, like just walking back down memory lane, Amy. So again, ironically, I think about a week ago from March 13th for whenever this airs, 2020, somebody woke me up and reminded me on that day that was Friday the 13th was also 6 years ago, a Friday when the world officially said, when the US said, we're going to go into a quarantine and we're going to shut down. And so it seems like a lifetime ago in so many ways, but it really wasn't. Yeah. But so many things changed, to your point, starting with like that message. First of all, my first priority was like, what am I going to do with my kids if I have to work? Because like in the rare occasion where they would be like sick, I would at least I could probably get a couple things done, but like it wasn't realistic because to your point, working from home was not like, I didn't have the setup for that. I didn't have thing, just had never really thought about it. Like if it was a necessity, you just figured it out where like I'm balancing my laptop on the couch or something like that. But I didn't really have a home office, so to speak,
Right.
for me personally. And I had been in corporate America at that point for 20 years. I just didn't, it
Right.
just wasn't the way I worked.
Because we were in the office.
Because we were always in the office.
Yeah.
It was
Always in the
never,
office.
it was not, and unless you were in the field as a sales rep or like you said, a remote opportunity, you were thrust into that with zero preparation. Because when to walk back memory lane, like Latoya said, when it was a shutdown, it was like, oh no, you're figuring it out right in this moment. You had to literally mobilize. And how funny, first of all, Zoom was laughing all the way to the bank, because to have Zoom become a substitute for travel, like from a business model perspective, that blows your mind. Like there's literally case studies on this to say, that changed the game in terms of substitutes, to have something like that, a video conferencing application take place of travel. And so, yeah, it was, I mean, I personally, I had the capacity to make a room an office, but just what you said, the family dynamics, and saying to yourself, well, it's not just about, okay, now I have to figure out space for an office. I have to actually figure out my life. Like this is a life change. It's not even just about work. I remember my brother and my sister-in-law, it was like, okay, so they both were working, and how do you figure out school with the kids? So it's like they were all over the place. And I remember in that moment feeling like, oh my gosh, this is going to be something else.
It was crazy time. Like
it was crazy times. But remember, there was a small period of time where we're like, it's just going to be a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So about that.
Couple
It's
weeks.
just
And
gonna be
I
a
was
couple
like
weeks.
not cool with that. Like I was like, wait, what? Send wine. How are we going to do this? For context, for those of you that know me or are getting to know me, I have twins. They were born in December, the last week of December 2018. They had just turned 1. And they also had just started walking about not even 3 weeks before.
Oh my God.
So they a little over 13 months, they started walking. Oh my God, that's so exciting. Great. The daycare will have the most of the day. But they didn't. And then and they were literally everywhere, pulling on laptops, scores, things that I didn't have set up. I think we're using like TV trays. Like it was a mess.
God.
And then to your point, now we got kids. I got a school-age kid in one room. The acoustics in the house didn't work. Got two adults trying to take meetings that we don't know how to operate because we still really didn't know how to use Zoom.
That's right.
Yeah.
We're like, people were rolling it out, but it was just like those first couple weeks were like, the first week you're like, we'll get through it. Okay, all good. And then by week 2, it's like, I'm not seeing like a clear path back. Like we might really have to figure something out. And it just was wild.
It was.
I think too, personally, I remember feeling like, oh, cool. I've never worked from home. I'm going to work from home, for a few weeks. This will be great. And this will be fun. Yeah. No, 2 weeks in, I was like, okay, I'm going to be back I got to go back. Like I miss just people, right? You just miss the energy and we're going to get more into this, right? What are the positives and what are the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? We said this earlier, Latoya, the good, the bad, and the ugly of hybrid work and all these RTO policies. But yeah, I was solid for 2 weeks. And then after that, I was like, I'm not sure 5 days at home is great for me.
I just remember how much I remember in that moment thinking, well, first of all, I was supposed to go to Belgium. So I had like a fully booked flight. I had all the things. I was ready to go. And then turn around and it was like, no, we're grounded. We're home. And I was like, oh, okay. And so in that moment when they said, we're doing the remote thing, I remember thinking like, oh God, because I supported Europe and then I had APAC and the US. And I remember thinking, I'm going to be working 24/7. Like this is my life now. Like I'm going to constantly be on Zoom. And I remember how much we blurred the lines of personal life and work in that moment, because back in the day, my parents love saying this, but back in the day, my mom and dad used to say this, like during the pandemic, they were like, they used to say, well, we feel for you. We feel bad at times because you now have a cell phone and you have this connectivity and you have these apps. And my dad was like, once we left the office, that was it. You leave the office. He's like, now during the pandemic, he goes, you're really blurring the lines. He's like, because no one is going to think twice about reaching out to you at night, or, you know, getting you while your kids are screaming in the background, or the dog is making noise, or you're, you know, exactly. Like you're just saying to yourself, okay, well, I guess this is just normal now. And everybody
Mm-hmm.
got to know each other even more personally because of the fact that you had to make those apologies. You're like, sorry, I just got a puppy. And I
This
remember I
is
was like,
not
well,
planned. Amy literally has a child coming,
yes,
her granddaughter probably coming, which is totally
yes,
fine because this
yes,
is
She's right here
exactly,
right now.
this
My
is like
granddaughter is
perfect.
this is a great
which
example
was a
of
great
Completely
example.
unplanned and
she
yet perfect.
Nana, she's
I was like,
perfect
I wasn't going to
timing.
say anything, and I'm like, I love this
No,
because this is
you're
No,
right.
I think
exactly,
it's
it's like,
perfect.
it's literally
real
like
life.
it is a very, like, for me, it's nostalgia because this is literally
Yes.
the life that I lived for
I
like
didn't
a
plan this.
solid
I swear.
14 months.
And
I'm
there's
really
nothing
busy
wrong
right
with
now.
it,
I'm
right?
really
Nothing
There's
wrong.
busy.
literally nothing wrong with that. That's the thing. It's
And to
just
that,
that we got used to
we
it.
just did it.
Life is
But
life
that
over
was
here.
actually what made me think of that too. And Marcia, even while you were talking about like the blurred lines and all this stuff, but
Yes.
this was one of the good things. Like as a mom, and I've talked about this in other episode, and a lot of like having this ideal that like there were things that just were completely unacceptable. And we all remember, and that's why Amy, like I laughed because remember the CNN guy trying to do his interview, like he
That was the
clearly did
greatest
not
thing I've
have
ever
the same
seen.
setup either. He wasn't ready. And
That
then
was
he had the
amazing.
kids come in the background. You didn't know what to do.
And
And like,
then
it was the same
Yes.
because it was considered like
it was amazing.
unprofessional. Like if
Yeah.
you did get into a situation where you had to work from home, you
Yeah.
dare not, like it needed to look like the most professional situation that you were
I
could
know.
That's
possibly
right.
be in.
Which is so silly.
Kids in the background, things
Yeah.
happening, having to live your life with that. But
Yeah.
then in this pandemic time, when this kicked off, people were like, listen, we're all doing the best that we can. Like
Man.
if your kids, grandkids, neighbors, the husband
Yeah.
forgot to put on the
Cat.
shirt, like whatever
Cat jumped
happens,
on-
happens. Like
The
we're
cat
gonna
jumped
all
on your
figure it.
lap. I've seen a couple of those. You know,
you just oh yeah, like there's so many funny stories that came out of that. Like so my ex-husband at the time, like so it was like the two of us in the house. We had just got a puppy, so like the dog would literally like be in my lap, and at one point I was like, whatever, you know, like he became the unofficial mascot of team meetings at times. Like I would just have him in the back, and my ex-husband's voice would, when I say that man could have been in the basement and I was upstairs, it didn't matter. And then finally I got to this point where I was just like, whatever, everyone's gonna know that he's loud. Like it just is what it became a joke. Like it
Yeah.
and I found ways to insert the humor into it. And I remember thinking in that moment, like, okay, lines are blurred between personal and professional life. But to your point, Latoya, there was positivity that came out of that because we saw each other in those moments and we finally said, okay, how about we treat each other as human beings
Yeah.
and let's be just like real about our situations and say, okay, this is my life then, you know, you're gonna be privy to that, and I'm not gonna apologize if my child's crying or I have to get up and go walk my dog so he doesn't mess on the floor. You know, it's like it's just like that was real life.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
it's-
totally. Yeah. And I think about, you know, coming back from that. I think, you know, especially when we started to see these larger corporations, right? Jamie Dimon with Chase, so many of these large companies saying back in the office, right? And they started with this hybrid RTO. Holy cow. I remember like where I'm at, we gave people, well, we announced it and then kind of backed off of it. But then announced it, I think it was like 9 to 10 months in advance, continued to remind people, right? And the closer we got to the return to office date, the more employees would reach out and say things like, well, I don't have a car, you know, whatever the situation was.
I moved to Barbados.
So I moved. And Latoya, like, I know you say that jokingly, but we all had employees that did that.
I did have that happen.
We absolutely had employees that moved. No malicious intent, but do you recognize that if you move from, let's say, Indianapolis to California and never tell us, there's going to be just some minor tax problems,
just
like
a couple tax
just a couple things. So, but employees that aren't thinking about that. So to them, it's like, well, I'm working from home, so I can work from anywhere, right? No, not really. We need to know about these things.
Please update.
Yeah, we had a lot of that too. It was Yeah,
It
huge
was.
learning
It was
curve,
a huge
right?
learning curve
Totally.
for being in HR at that time. I remember my brain
Mhm.
exploding, thinking about this is going to create such a policy churn. And it did.
It
But it
did. It
also,
did.
what it did two things. One, the policy police action came in with us trying to figure this out. And then two, what happened is that because those barriers were removed for people to say, well, if I work remote, then technically I can live anywhere. It shifted. And I would talk to people about this. It shifted the mindset of, oh gosh, now I'm stuck working from home and this is chaotic, to actually, I kind of like this. And some
Mhm.
people then had that mentality of, well, I don't really want to be capped in the office all the time and not,
Mhm.
be able to go for a walk or do my laundry or bake a sourdough bread at
Yeah, right,
12
right.
p.m.,
Right.
which
Right.
people shouldn't have been doing during work
Yeah.
hours,
Yeah.
but I get
When
it.
we get to the bad part, like
That was
maybe
part of
There's
the
some
don't.
bad.
things.
Yeah,
But
there's some things. Yeah.
there's some things, but I also understood where some people were coming from, because you go back into the office, it's 9 to 5, you're in these meetings all day, you have fluorescent lights like just draining your eyeballs, and you're like, wow, I'm cut off from the sun, I'm cut off from that walk that I did with a family member during that time, or I'm cut off from that time with my beautiful grandchild or my beautiful twins, who, even though it was chaotic for me, I actually did bond with them in that moment, and I
Yeah.
actually really love that, and I'm grateful for that time. So it
Yeah.
got people thinking differently. And that's ultimately what happened, is then we went from such an extreme to like, no, now everybody's back in the office.
Yeah.
It was
And
rough.
plus, how many people can you both attest to? And I know sure a lot of people that'll listen to this remember, like mid 2020, like after you set in and you got your office set up, right? And you ordered all the things that they said you could get so you
All the
could get it
things.
set up. You were ready. And then
Yeah.
it was like, this is, like you said, Marcy, this is good.
Nice.
I can do this.
Yeah.
And then it's like, we'll never go back. And so
Yep.
this was
Mhm.
like, so then you get to the other half of 2020 and we're kind of like, we don't love the pandemic, but we're seeing some
Yeah.
good in it, right? We're like, this
Mhm.
this
It
this
was.
part is good. We like this. We like the
Yeah.
walking meetings on. And then, like your company that you described, Amy, a lot of companies, and the company we worked for at the time too, similarly started to hint at, "Mm, we might be
You're
looking
coming
Get
at
back.
ready.
RTO in 2021." Wait,
Yes.
what? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
would we do that? Like, I am more productive than I've ever been. To Amy,
Oh,
and I'm baking sourdough bread,
100%.
and I had 5 meetings today,
Yeah.
and I am
Exactly.
raising children all at the same time. I am my best self right now. I'm doing
We
That's
65
proved
right.
things.
we
That's
proved that
right.
it worked, right? We
Right.
proved
Why
we
would
had
you even
evidence.
consider this? And the
Yes.
reality
Yep.
is, I'm hearing this because I'm in HR, many of our HR friends too, because I'm in some of these meetings where they're like, well, why, first of all, when RTO came, what do we even talk? What is this acronym? Some of you that didn't hear this yet because you weren't on these project teams that were like thinking about RTO. I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't know that, like, don't, like, the people that were like, I'm gonna move to Barbados, or my friends that were just
Yeah.
like, I could work from here. I'm now being the HR friend. I'm like, don't plan your whole life around that. You're never going. I know that you're living
No.
your best life right now. I don't think this is going to last. Why would
No.
companies ever do that? They can save money. They could do this. All this.
Oh, I heard all
I'm
the
telling
things
you,
too.
I
Yeah.
Yeah.
believe this is not a forever situation. Even
That's
when
right.
You're
we
right.
come out of the pandemic, that people didn't want to hear that. So it hit them even harder when they start hearing these things like, oh, they're serious. Like, you're going to make us come back to the office? And then you're
Yeah.
Exactly.
right. This is when they realized that now we need to figure out, how do I not go back into the office, which is
Exactly.
what
Well,
got really interesting.
because I mean,
Yeah.
ultimately,
Right.
people don't like being told what to do, right? We don't like to
Yeah.
be told what to do. To go from that freedom where and to your point, Latoya, people did show high spikes in productivity during that time. I know
Mhm.
I did. I was doing all the things, and I was like, I don't really need to be in the office. Like, first of all, I was in a global role. And so I was always, productive in these meetings. And I remember thinking, okay, so I'm going to go back to an office, sit in a conference room, and be on Zoom calls all day anyway, where I maybe have like 2 meetings in person where most of my leaders sit. And I remember in that moment thinking, well, this is kind of silly. I actually did prove that I was very productive working from home. So why can't I come in only a couple days a week when I have face-to-face meetings? So that's ultimately what started to happen, is that that rebellion kicked in, because it was,
Yeah.
well, now I'm being told that I am more productive in the office,
Right.
because that's what most leaders felt. And a lot of these leaders, they grew up in that era where it was, you were in the office 5 days a week. You had that face-to-face, like everything was face-to-face. So the
FaceTime
change
is
curve,
important.
yeah, it was huge
Yeah.
on both
Yeah.
sides. It was like you had these leaders where it was like legacy of, no, you're in the office. Like you're in the office
Yeah.
24/7. I live for my job, right? And then you have other people who are like, no, man, I want to make sourdough bread, and I want to go for a walk, and I want
Yeah.
to do yoga at lunch, and
Yeah.
my job is not my life. So we watched that battle happen, and it
Yeah.
was rough.
I want to dig into one of the terms that we've all heard. Leaders of businesses across the world say this, and that is, we want people to come back for collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
I have feelings about this.
Tell us your feelings, Amy.
I have feelings about
Tell
this.
us
Now,
some
first of
Your
all,
feelings.
this is coming from a person that gets a lot of good energy being around other people that I work with. So I do enjoy that. But to your point, Marcy, I'm like, but I want to do it on my terms, first of all. Number one. Number two, I think what's been proven is collaboration can happen in ways that look different than they did 10 years ago. And clearly the pandemic has proven that, right? I mean, to your point earlier, Marcy, salespeople are not traveling like they were. They certainly weren't for like a couple of years, right? From 2020 to 2022 at least. So, I mean, I struggle to really kind of buy into that. Now, I will say that when I get my team together, or if I'm in a team that's coming together and we have FaceTime and with a huge whiteboard and a big conference room, there's a lot of good synergies and ideas happening. And I love that.
I get that.
But does that mean collaboration can only happen like that? I'm not sure I buy into that.
That's
What are
the
your
big
thoughts?
question. I think that's a huge question. And Latoya, you're going through this a lot right now.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
have so many thoughts on this,
Party
because I agree. I
going.
think when you make just widespread comments where it's like, well, the only way we are successful is this, it's a bold statement with not a lot of facts to back it up. So I think really ultimately it has to be rooted in, what is your strategy? Like as a business, what is your strategy? What do you know about your organization? When, you have these collaboration meetings, or you have these types of meetings where you need everybody in that room, Amy, to your point, where
Yeah.
we're whiteboarding ideas, and it's like, no, this is our war room, basically. We're
Yeah.
going,
Right.
we got to
Yep.
figure it out. Great minds in the room are needed. That I get. But when you make these blanket statements, these one size fits all statements, I think that's where you are going to come up with resistance. People are going to say, actually, hold on. No. You can't say that, because as a salesperson, I hit X. As someone in HR who had a global role where I was able to be remote, I was able to do 3 global reorganizations remotely. Right.
Mhm.
So
That's
that's
right.
where I think we get into trouble as leaders when we
Yeah.
make those blanket statements. And Latoya, I'd love to hear, because you're down this path right now.
Mhm.
So
I've been down this path a couple times. I mean,
Yeah. Right.
that's the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like I've been down this
Mhm.
path. I mean, the company I was with during the pandemic was an early adopter to the return to office. And it was, I would say in some ways, again, it was a gift, and it has become an interesting conundrum too, because
Latoya, before you go into that, was it when you did the return to office, was it hybrid? Was it 5 days or
it was
3
hybrid.
or
So, and
hybrid?
it was a hybrid, and by the way, like it wasn't really sure. Again, as an early adopter, it didn't really know, like there wasn't a whole lot of blueprints. I mean, there was only a handful of
Right.
companies that came
Yeah.
out the gate, and this was early 2021, like when it was announced. The conversations, like I said, like I'm alluding to before, started in the second half of 2020, and I'm like, that's crazy work. Like we're going back to the office already. Like I'm not even sure. Like I don't even see some of my family, because I need a COVID result before I'm doing it. We're
Mhm.
talking about that, but it was the conversations entering, and it was like, where do we start? Right. Because there was no blueprint for this. Okay. We didn't know how we would get here, but we don't know how to get out of it either. But at the time, our CHRO and the leadership team was talking to say things like, we believe that people are better we're better together.
Together.
Better together is probably
family.
that is absolutely put that in the, you know, in the corporate cringe graveyard for all of it. But that was how it started. I remember, like, I have a shirt that says that and everything. That's how excited we were about being better together.
Wow,
but
yeah, right.
we believed that was well, I don't know that I believed. I'm with you, Amy. I wasn't there yet. Like, I wasn't drinking the Kool-Aid. I was like, I think I'm better making banana nut bread during the day than anything else. But it kind of evolved. So you started to say, like, what I realized is we set the tone. These 4 or 5 multinational companies that were coming out, and it's like, how are we going to do this? Here's the thing. We did know what we were doing, and we learned a lot of lessons along the way, because first we got all the same reactions much quicker, because it was like, how dare you? How dare you make us come back to the office? This makes no sense. We're more productive, nothing to base this on. And it was like, why us too? And it was punitive. And that was one of my biggest lessons learned, is because we made it punitive. It was hybrid, because we landed there to say, okay, we won't, and it was really more of a, like, try before you, but for all intents and purposes, it was a pilot, because it was like, okay, well, we'll have people come in a couple days a week, 2 or 3 days a week. You choose your own adventure kind of thing, what works for you, and that'll ease us back. That was the intent. It wasn't like the concept of hybrid wasn't really hybrid. It was like, this is the step process back into the office. And that became the norm, because what we learned through that is that became, as we know now, right? Studies show people actually prefer hybrid over either of the other 2 options, which is fully in office or fully remote. I know a lot of people don't believe that, but that truly is where we landed. But
that again, is
going
true.
back in those early days, it was really more of a like, well, let's see what happens and see how people react to that. And it was wild. Like, people were like, not just upset, like, don't tell me what to do. Like, the stories I heard, the types of, I mean, people, everyone's going to quit, massive
there was
reactions,
fear,
lots
right?
of
We
emotions, totally understandable. But it was like, I was like, look, again, there's no HR school, so to speak. Like, there are HR degrees that are fantastic. But it's definitely not a chapter in the HR book. We didn't know how to do this. And again, the other thing that I had to learn through that is, and I've taken this to where I am now, is this was not HR's work either. This was a collaborative effort. We were trying to shape, like we do other policies. We've never done this before. Like, there were no case studies. There were no Harvard Business Reviews. There was nothing to go on.
No, you can't call somebody in your circle and say, hey, LaToya and Marcy, what are you guys doing? Because you guys are saying, well, we don't know. What are you guys doing?
Let's figure it out.
That Spider-Man meme where there's like 3 of them and they're all pointing at each other. Like, that's literally what it felt like. I was like, I don't know. I'm figuring, like, I remember my leader was like, kick it away, Marcy. I was like,
what am I saying here?
I didn't sign up for this shit. But it really was a storm of just chaos.
It was.
And LaToya, you're so spot on. I heard the same, like the how dare yous and you're like, I mean, it was like from safety to like all the way down, like any excuse.
Oh yeah. Tons of the safety stuff too.
I got it.
Yeah. You know, I don't know about, did you guys also hear, and this wasn't just for me, kind of where I'm at, but a lot of, you know, HR colleagues in this kind of, in these spaces, we were often hearing, I'm sure you guys were too, that it was all HR's fault, right?
Oh yeah, we got
it's all HR. So managers that would go to their team and say, you know, this is the decision that HR made. And if you have a problem with it, go see HR.
This HR policy. Oh no.
I'm like,
I was like, what?
Here we are
human
again.
Shields again. Like, here we go, because leaders don't want to have tough conversations. And
we had already just been through enough during this time. Like,
exactly.
Now we have to roll out this. And like I said, sorry, I caught a cold somewhere in the ocean. It's all good.
Yeah. Listen,
but
don't rub it in that you were on vacation.
I know.
Yes, I was on vacation. It was awesome. The punitive part. This was probably my biggest lesson learned. And I have actually, like, I had done a couple when I did figure out, like, I kind of know what I'm doing now because we were early adopter. I'm like, listen, for those of you that had called me and haven't done this yet, let me tell you what you don't want to do. We made it punitive. We said it was flexible. Yes. We said it was that. And then we started taking attendance. And that got fun because I was like, wow, $18,000 worth of college, and I'm now a hall monitor because it's like, these people in your organization are not following the policy. Why are we doing this? So, you know, we had attendance trackers, badge records. People were the productivity tracker that some companies put together, and it's like, come on, like,
really, like, that's where our energy was. And then
Exactly. This is
Latoya,
what
not
we
only
want
that,
to do with our energy.
we actually
Yeah.
had people that we moved into roles, specific roles, just to do the productivity police action
That's
and
so
to
true.
Oh,
track that.
wow.
And I
Yeah.
remember thinking to
That's
myself,
right.
like,
We had an entire group of people in our company that was
Wow.
focused
Yeah,
on
that's
like,
global enterprise type
I was
company
like,
stuff right
what?
there. Yeah.
You're kidding me. I was like, so who's signing up for these jobs? And I'm like, and what are the transferable skills? Like, this is just, and the trackers and the sheets that would get emailed. And God forbid, you didn't, you had a week where you didn't badge in as much as you should, because my sales reps, oh my God, I was like, I'm going to change my phone number. I was like, I can't
was the
even,
worst.
the amount of
Yeah.
phone calls I would get.
Yeah.
Marcy, I was on sales calls. And I'm like, first of all, I was like, why are you yelling at me? Let's take it
Yeah.
down. Like,
Yes.
you're at a 10, I need you at a 5 so that we can have this
Bring it
conversation.
down several
Because
Honestly.
I mean, and I'm sure the two of you can attest, like, it brought out, I was like, oh my God. I was like, they're going to get the unhealed version of me. Like, literally at
Yeah.
one conversation, I
Here
was
we
like, the
go.
earrings are going
Earrings
to
coming
come off.
off. It happens
I
once
was
an
like,
episode, ladies and
you
gentlemen.
you are gonna get non-HR
And
Marcy
deep
if you
down,
keep
Marcy,
yelling
what
at
you
me.
were really thinking is, I don't actually care.
I
Like,
don't
I
care.
don't really care
Don't
what you were doing. I
care.
don't want to
I
do this.
didn't.
I don't care what you were doing.
Exactly.
I am not personally tracking your hours. However, I do
No.
realize I am now the person who is responsible for you telling this
Lucky
to when
us.
you're not. Hooray. Like, this was not HR's battle, but again, we were in the crosshairs of it, and it was rough. And again, as someone who I don't know that I've ever fully subscribed to it, but I do kind of bringing it back. Like, I saw the other side of it too. I will
Yeah.
say that
Of
for
course.
every personal and dinner conversation that I had about, like, well, what make it make sense, Latoya? Like,
Yeah.
why? What is any reason to even go back to that? None of it
Yeah.
makes sense. And I'm
Tell
like,
us, Latoya.
okay, I give you a couple.
Yeah.
Like, there are
Yeah.
some other things that maybe you
There
guys
are
are not
things.
seeing. Number one, as someone who, I mean, like, all three of us, we're like hard, like geriatric millennial Gen X. Like, we've lived in very different and worked in different technology environments and worked type of cultures and environments. The reality was this: I knew several people that joined organizations during the pandemic. They had
Same.
zero connection back to the
Yes.
company. They didn't
Yeah.
know anything that wasn't on
Mm-mm.
technology. They had never interacted with people. And
Yeah.
no matter
It's so
what we want to say,
isolating.
there was
It is.
relationship capital that if
Yeah.
you didn't have it, you certainly weren't going to get it over Zoom with 16
You
other
sure
boxes
weren't.
across the
I
screen.
agree with that.
That's
I
right.
agree. That was
And
it was a
so
huge barrier for
it
people.
was a
to get
Huge.
huge barrier
Yeah.
for a lot of people that would
Yes.
say, I don't really know this company. I don't feel the connection. Like, I'm lost. I don't have a network. I don't know how to navigate.
Or a
this
friend at
way.
work.
I don't have a
Right?
buddy.
You have a buddy,
I have
right?
a buddy.
I have no
Like-
friends.
You got
I
no
just-
friends.
Yeah.
Friends. You
Yeah.
know?
And
It's
that was
true.
a real thing. And then you also
Yeah.
had people who joined the workforce during that time. So it's
Yeah.
one, so you get
Yeah.
two different sides. You got people that joined companies because there was a lot of hiring going on during this time too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then people that joined the workforce, it was the generation that was entering the workforce for the first time, who had never done anything outside of it. Again, they don't know how to navigate corporate America. We didn't actually change that much in those first couple of years. To be honest, we just learned how to use Zoom and
Yep.
chat boxes and things like that. But we
So
still based things like performance and how people got promoted and things like that based on relationship capital, visibility, but good, bad, or indifferent. That's what it was. And they didn't
That's
have
reality.
that playbook. They had
They sure
no
didn't.
visibility to it. So
You're
from
right.
an HR perspective, I'm like, this isn't really fair to them. Now, is that the only way to do it? Can we evolve how we do these things? Yes. But the reality is we're still figuring it out, right? Like, we're still
Figuring it
figuring it out.
out.
And
Yep.
this is a very different world for some
Yeah.
of those people. And we've got to figure out how to not only just have hybrid work environments, how to actually integrate that into how we work in every
that's
Yeah.
what it
aspect
is.
of it.
I think
Yep.
that's what it is. I think the issue and I love that you brought up the generation, because it's true. Now more than ever, we have so many generations in the workforce together.
Right. Yeah.
And you have a generation that's like, okay, cool, I'll just go work somewhere else. Like, they're not going to subscribe to this mentality of like, here, this is how we do things here. But I think that there's a way, to your point, to integrate it. And I think that's where, we can evolve to now. In the beginning, of course, it was going to be messy because we were literally trying to build a plane while it was in air. It's like, of course, we're not going to have all the answers. But I
Yeah.
think now we have the power, and this is a lot of what companies do. It's like we do this benchmarking, and that sometimes drives me up a wall, because I'm like, you're doing benchmarking, and after a while the benchmarking is, you might as well just hit copy and paste and then everybody looks the same. I'm like, instead of doing external benchmarking, reel it in internally, ask yourselves, what is it that makes us great? What do people love about working here? Okay, people appreciate flexibility, they appreciate the hybrid. Okay, what can we do? What's within the scope of our control? I don't care what ABC company's doing. What does this company, our company, stand for? Well, we know we are more productive as a sales organization when we're in the office exchanging ideas with our marketing team. Okay, cool. Can we do that on Wednesdays? Yes, we have the space for it. Cool. Can we agree that other days of the week we can allow for flexibility? Okay, yes. What does that look like? And that's where I think the conversation needs to shift. Instead, it keeps going back to, again, what's the policy? What's the policy?
Yeah,
and that is ultimately what drives people crazy, including the
us.
three of us on this call, because as HR, we don't like this conversation. It makes us crazy to have this conversation. This is not where we want to play, because this isn't a strategic conversation. This isn't where we find value.
Right. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I had people stop by and say, hey, this would be like 6 months we've been back at RTO, right? So we're in the office, we're moving and grooving, mostly attendance tracking, monitoring, all the things. Yes, LaToya, you said it all. And don't let me. But anyways, I can't tell you how many people would swing by and say, I noticed that so-and-so from so-and-so department isn't in the office today.
That's my favorite too.
And I'm like, maybe they're on vacation today. Maybe they're at a doctor's appointment. Maybe they're sick. Like, this is what I'm supposed to go do now, is go not only see who badged in and badged out X number of days a week over a month period. Now you employees want me to go chair to chair to chair, take my notebook and say, are your employees on vacation today? Are they sick today? Oh, they left early. Like, please.
Again, that's
like,
it's
I didn't
madness.
sign up for this.
Madness.
It really is ridiculous when you look at it. It's absolutely ridiculous. So
do you think, I will say, now that we've been doing this a while, the tracking it was short-lived for HR to manage it. I'll say that. Managers are absolutely still doing their thing, as they should be. It should have been theirs from the very beginning, by the way, not HR's job.
Correct.
But yes, managers, you should know where your team. I mean, I'm not even thinking about hybrid work or return to office, and I know where my team is.
Correct.
Like, that's just being close to your team, right?
Totally. I totally agree. And I will tell you, so you're right. Got into it, moving and grooving, still had the random things that were happening. But by 2023, late 2022, things were like, okay, like, it is what it is. People are like, yeah, I got it. Like, Tuesday, Wednesday, the traffic's terrible. Everybody's coming in the office on those days. That's what everybody chose, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then I changed to a new company, and it was like, they never did any of this. Like, they never did RTO.
The extreme.
And I'm
like,
wow,
like,
I had heard about these things. It's like an urban legend. There are still multinational companies that are not doing RTO.
Doing this.
Awesome.
Which is wild.
I am super excited.
Yeah.
Until it was like, please come to this secret meeting. We're thinking about implementing RTO. Oh no, I've been here before. Let me tell you what we're not going to do.
You're like, why does this keep finding me?
Like, why does it find me?
I know.
I don't. So I'm like, listen, and this is why I get myself in trouble. I'm like, I don't even want to be on this project team. Here's just, I am now the white paper. Let me tell you what I know.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll share
I was
what
OG in the RTO game, and I can drop some knowledge because an OG RTO implementer. I don't want any parts of it. Oh my gosh, LaToya, please join this project team. Oh no, I don't want to be on the project team. I just wanted to share my gems and just keep it moving. But here I am, back in the saddle.
There you are.
I was going to say, but
and
now
I will tell you, it's just as crazy on the late adopter. It's worse because now people are like, again, how dare you? Because
I'm cringing
now because we've been doing this for so long.
5 years, like, I mean, I've built my entire life around making sourdough bread in the middle of the day. I actually am a permanent resident of Barbados, and I did actually change my address. I saw the email about that. But like, I am good. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't even live in that general area. Like, what office am I going back to? The issues were different this time. Like, this was on a whole nother level. People, I mean, 1-2 years in the middle of a pandemic, there were those people that took those chances. I mean, people have really set into their life at this point and
Yeah, that's
believe
right.
this is never going to happen here, because
Yeah.
why would it? Everybody else that was doing it clearly did it in the first couple of years after the
Yeah.
pandemic. Like, we're back and we've decided that this is our way of working, but it's not. This has been much more challenging, and I didn't think that was possible, because I didn't think it could get any
I
worse
would think
after
so.
You're
than
right.
it is on this side. And it's been a battle of like, and trying to figure it out. And I think what I'm seeing now is, again, it's the legalities of it, the questions that are coming up, the things that we never really thought of, because we did so many things happen in 5 years that are so, it's not just company policy anymore. We're talking about, we need to think totally different about location strategy. We need to think
Yeah.
differently about what are our centers of gravity. Like, there are some table stake things that were not part of the conversation when it was just return to office from the pandemic, because
Right.
we've created now a company culture and a way of working that completely disrupts people's lives if we change
Yeah.
this. And it is
I
much
agree.
Yeah.
more complex.
That's
And
Absolutely.
now
that has
it
to
requires,
be,
so
I
it's
agree.
funny, I never thought it would get here, but it's strategic, because now this rolls up, like, we got consultants coming in at this point,
I was
because
just gonna
like,
say, bring in the
we need to
consultants.
rethink our whole geographic footprint around
That's
these
That's
types
right.
of things. And that is a
Absolutely.
very, very, it's become a more, and I know other organizations, again, benchmarking, of like, there's the intangibles of like collaboration, the things that we know, but then this is a real big
There are.
effort to figure out like,
Well,
how will
real
we change
estate,
the way we work?
I was just
right?
gonna
Oh,
say,
totally.
Real,
for sure.
Yeah, real estate, tax, you've got
yeah,
lawyers involved. Like, it's a lot. And I
all
think
of it.
people sometimes, if you're not behind the scenes, by the way, do not sign up for one of these project teams, or
Oh,
stay
Ever.
away.
God,
Don't
ever.
drop your
No.
gems.
Run.
Just
Nope.
act
Don't
like
drop your
you've never
gems.
heard of
Just
this
hold them.
before. It's a lot more in depth, and so many more people and layers to this when you're doing it now, that people do not have visibility to. So again, while I laughed when we had these roles created before, I was like, yeah, now I kind of see it, because all of this could have been avoided if we had done this in the early
3 years ago.
Yeah. That's what it is. It's like now it's like you're really embedded, and trying to do a change curve, I'm sure, is like not an easy thing, and
Yeah.
trying to get people there. Plus, when you think about, even from a recruitment perspective, when you've had that flexibility to allow for remote, or the geography to be a little bit of open, you did have more access to talent. And I heard that from leaders as well, saying, well, so one of the companies I worked for example, it's like huge tri-state area presence, and then we would find talent, and it was like, we need you to move and physically be here. And I remember it never worked out in the end. Like, these were people, from a turnover perspective, we always ended up losing, because they just, from a personal perspective, they're like, but I don't see myself wanting to live and stay in this area. And that's what started to happen, is that people started to ask themselves, well, what do I want out
That's
of life?
right. They
And didn't want,
reevaluate that,
they
right?
do. And you,
Yeah.
I'm sure you could speak to this too, because you get to this place where you're just like, well, maybe I want to be able to dictate more of what I do in life, versus
Yeah.
a company telling me that I have to badge in 3 days a week, and they're going to start monitoring my activity. Because before the pandemic, pre-pandemic, we didn't do any of that. You just trusted your employees where they were. You weren't tracking any of that stuff. And now what we were saying is, one, we want you back in the office. Now we're going to monitor you. Now it's more of telling you what to do. Oh, and by the way, which was my favorite, was, now when it comes time to performance reviews, we're going to check to see how many did you not badge in enough during that month, or these last 2 months, because then that's going to affect your performance rating. And I remember being like,
Oh yeah.
this is
That's about the time where I completely lost it. I was like, oh no,
Same.
we're not going to change people's performance.
Same.
It was terrible.
It was
Yeah.
terrible. And I remember
It's
being
so tough.
pulled into those meetings being like, what, are you serious?
Like,
So
are we really
this
Yeah.
is who we
this?
are now. That's what I remember saying. I was like, just so you know, this is now who we are then. What you're
Yeah.
saying is, it goes beyond just remote work. This is what you're saying as a company. This is who we are. And we lost a lot of people because of that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that was, to me, that was not one of the better choice. Pro tip: do not.
Don't do that.
Add this to
Don't do
performance.
that.
It is just like anything else. If there is a expectation, then, Amy, to your very good point earlier, as a people leader, you're accountable for making sure your team aligns to whatever policy that is.
That's
your
right.
job. As an employee, it's your job to align. You don't have to like the company policies, but if that's what it is. But the moment
Yep.
that, as an organization, we start to define like something as the correlation and be like, the number of days you come into the office directly ties to which performance rating you get. I knew that was a dark path that we shouldn't have been going down. And I'm
Wow.
glad that
Yeah.
things changed, because again, early stages, but I'm glad that one did not stick, because it was not, I will go on record and say that was not the right choice at the time. And again, we were figuring it out of the way, but there were several people that stood up and said, I don't think this is who we want to be. And
Good.
other companies learned from that, because that was not a popular direction to go after that from the benchmarking.
I'm glad.
Yeah, I bet. So where do we think it's going? I mean, I read a stat that 20%, which is up, I think, like 17% of positions that are posted are that they say remote.
Yes, they do.
So it's interesting, right? So it makes me wonder, where are we headed? Where are we headed with hybrid work and remote work? And LaToya, I mean, it sounds like for some companies, we're still in this battle of figuring out what makes the most sense, right? So I think there will be some companies that will still be doing that in another 5 years, but it will be less and less, because I think, again, we're kind of all still figuring out what the future of work looks like. And then, oh, by the way, as we kind of talked before we hit record today, we said, how is AI going to impact this and play into this? So I think that the future of work, in terms of where people work, is going to continue to shift.
It is.
I think
it's going to be really interesting to see where it goes.
I think so too. And LaToya, you started to touch upon this too. Even just generationally speaking, I will say, I think the more conversations I'm having, because I'm doing a lot of career coaching right now, and the career coaching I'm doing, it's all different age groups, which is fun for me, because I've been asking them that question. So when you look for jobs, like, what is important to you? And every single one, I will say, it's not even just a generation thing, has been saying to me, flexibility.
Yeah.
And remote work a little. When they go to even negotiate their salary, they're saying to me, oh, I actually put on the table, I didn't necessarily get the salary I wanted, but I put on the table, could I work an extra day from home? And I had a young gentleman say that to me. He was like, Marcy, I will take a pay cut if it means I can be a fully remote worker. And I was like, wow. I was like, talk to me about that. And he's like, I just don't want that life. He's like, I don't want to be in an office 5 days a week or even 3 days a week. I want the flexibility. He goes, I get distracted easily when I work. He's like, I don't want to be in an office in cubicles where people can just like walk around, distract me. And I was like, I feel you. And
I get that.
And he said, he's like, I want my life the way I want my life. He goes, I'm a good employee. I'll keep my head down. I do my work. He goes, but my work is not my life. Yes. And I was like, good for you. Right. You know what you want and you're going after it. So I don't think there's going to be a one size fits all. I think you're still going to see hybrid. You're still going to see remote, but I think remote advertising and allowing for that is increasing for that reason.
Yeah, for sure. And there's always going to be some jobs that, just based on the nature of the job, will have to be in 5 days a week, right? If you think about some kind of, on the line manufacturing jobs, and there are jobs that's just a part of what it is. But people that go into those careers know that. So they're not expecting, can I work on the shop floor 1 day a week from home, please? Like, no, they know if they're taking a position like that that job is, in office, on site, on location, 5 days a week or whatever their work schedule is. For the rest of the world, I mean, I think that flexibility is and will be king, right? Yeah. I really do believe that.
I agree with that too.
I mean, I think
it's not going away.
It's capital at this point. Like it is something that you have to think about as a core part of like who you are as a company. What's your company model and policy? Yes. I think the other thing that, like, and my advice, what I would say would be a takeaway for people thinking about that or still evolving, because as much as I would love to never use the acronym RTO again or anything related to it, it is far from over, to your point, Amy. It is be intentional about the model. And where you started, Marcy, is like, you have to really think, who do we want to be as a company? What type of employee experience that we've talked about this before, but now this is a big part of that. What is the workplace experience that we want to create? And that goes from everything from how people work, where they work, what type of environment you create in those moments, like, and what does that look like? But you have to be really intentional, because just the concept of being like, okay, everybody just come back into the office and let's see how this works out, right? Like, you got a little bit of a pass if you were, again, one of those early adopters trying to figure it out. But we've been in this thing for a while. We've got data. We know what people say, that people, and talk to your employees, understand it. That's going to be different depending on, like, to your point, Amy, the company, the type of work you do. And I think it has to be fit for purpose. I think that's the
I
takeaway.
agree
Like,
with that.
you've got to figure out,
I agree.
unfortunately, this is why this is now the project team that won't go away, because it will continue to evolve. That's going to
That's
look
gonna keep
different as
evolving.
things are, or as things evolve, as needs evolve, as the company has to make decisions, even financial decisions. Because we talked about this earlier. I mean, let's be honest, it's cheaper to not have people in the
It
office
is.
sometimes. So, like, if
Yeah.
you're trying to rationalize costs or find cost synergies and all my fun corporate words from the finance organization, then it is people and real estate are the two biggest areas to cut. Let's just be honest. If for
That's right.
anybody that's been in
Let's be honest about that.
this thing, and so you've
That's
got to
right.
make some things that are different. And then I think the last thing that I will say is, one of my biggest lessons learned, this is something that I'm really pushing now because it's personal for me too, because I've had a lot of these conversations, is a conversation we didn't have enough before COVID, and I don't think in the early stages, is about kind of neural and diverse differences and how that plays into this. Everybody does not work the same. And we just took that for granted, I think, in years prior. And, like, we would just, there were just cubicles and you just that. But there were so many people that came forward to say, I was productive, not because I just wanted to make banana note and sourdough bread, because honestly, from a mental kind of, like, the way that my brain processes things, it was better for me to be in these environments. And that's really important for us as HR leaders, as leaders in businesses, to think through, like, how do we make sure that for different types of diverse backgrounds and learning styles and work, comfort, how do we make that experience equitable for everyone, so that if you are the type of person that needs to be in a quiet space, you have that as an option. Just like we think about accessibility in other ways, we need to think about that in these environments too.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
Yeah, it's so sorted out. I'm like, damn you, Ford, with the 40-hour work week. I'm like, you just had to go. But it's true, because that's how people feel. They feel that we became this machine that we just had to get on board with. And I think about that growing up. Like, I watched my dad. Like, my dad was, like, always working, and it was just, it's just like, dad's working, be quiet, or dad's, traveling. And I watched that man hustle and grind and hustle and grind. And that's the culture that I grew up in. I was just like, well, if you want to get anywhere, I'm sure the two of you can attest to this.
We did.
Like, you saw it. Like, your parents grind. And that's how you grew up. You grew up saying, okay, so in order to get ahead in life, I have to grind it out. I have to bleed for my company. I got to do these things. And what COVID also did, that in the pandemic did, is it woke people up to finally start saying, well, hold on a second. I've been taking a lot of things at face value and allowing myself to be told what to do. So I joke and say the remote work piece is just a small sliver of why some people are in this phase of almost what most people are calling rebellion. I just call awakening, because they're awakening to things in life that are more important to them. And there isn't, and God bless my dad's, generation and your parents' generation, they grew up with this mentality of, like, in order to have a good life, it's work is a huge part of your life. We're moving now to a collective awakening where people are saying, actually, no, like that's actually, and it doesn't have to be that way. And what the two of you described, I think, was such a beautiful thing, because I hear that a lot from clients that I coach, is that they start getting back to this, well, hold on a second. What matters to me actually more is my children and time with my children. What matters to me more is quality of life, is things outside of my job that I shouldn't have to apologize for, that I should feel good about talking about. And I'm not saying I'm going to bring all that into the workplace, because you shouldn't, but you should feel comfortable enough to have a dialogue with people to say, I actually feel the opposite of what you're saying, leader. I actually feel there's a middle ground to this, because you're making these bold blanket statements about people being in the office 5 days a week and thinking everyone's just going to get on board with it, when in fact they're saying, I prefer something different, and maybe we need to listen to that more.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. I love that. This is imagine if we had this podcast and we're doing this talk 3 years ago. I just imagine what that conversation would have been when we were in the height of it. Probably. We probably would have been like,
100% fired.
none of this is about where we're at right now.
Absolutely.
Well,
These are
it
all
kind of has to
hypothetical
be if we're in the middle of
situations.
COVID. It's the only experience we would have had. So we couldn't have got away from it, Latoya, I just want to say to you, I know you're kind of in the thick of this right now, doing some work around this.
Good luck, girl.
Good luck to you. I know how tough these conversations are with leaders, with managers, with finance team, with other HR leaders, with employees that have all the thoughts and opinions and emotions around it. The truth is, we're an employee too. We understand. We have some of those same thoughts, so we get it. So good luck to you dealing with that. I just want to make a quick comment too, that we are social. So I would be really interested in hearing like all the thoughts, RTO horror stories, thoughts on hybrid schedules. We're on LinkedIn, the HR Misfits. We're also on Instagram. One of these days we might get our lives together and do more on Facebook and TikTok. But you see the generation that is here talking with you today. So we're not all there yet. We're working on it. But yeah, bring us your comments, bring us your thoughts. We would love to hear more.
Curious.
I want to hear the RTO horror stories. I also would love for you guys to tell us your favorite work from home, whatever, like what's your go-to thing? Like, what is the game changer that you had with working from home?
What were yours? Mine's the business mullet party on
That's so great.
Right now I'm wearing slippers and sweatpants, but that was mine. I was like, give me business mullet.
If you did not hear a previous episode, you have to go back and watch them all so that you know but what the business mullet is. But we do love a business mullet.
We do love it.
Love it. I would say, listen, I don't even know how I have acquired all of these technology things, but I have a Amy knows this too because I sent you the link. Costco, you can send me a credit if you will, because this is an unpaid sponsored ad for the stand-up sit-down desk that you can get at Costco. Oh my gosh, total game! I love
game
this
changer.
Thing. Also, I had this desk for over a year before I realized it was a whiteboard on top. It's got a little charging station. What? So, hit me up.
Costco, we need sponsorship.
I can send you the direct link. I will be looking for influencer dollars, Costco, if you start to sell more of these desks. But it deserves my work from home game changer. Amy, what was yours?
Oh man, I have to say there's a couple. One, I mean, I think I did become. I'm embarrassed. I work for a tech company, so everybody thinks because you work for a tech company that you are just super tech savvy. I'm an HR people, okay, and I have shoulders to tap, and I tap them. So, but when you start working from home, you do become quite a bit more self-sufficient, and you use a lot of AI and ChatGPT and Claude to help you figure out tech issues that can be solved quickly. So, I think I've learned literally more about tools that can help me do my job more efficiently. I think I've relied on those a little bit more being home based. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I love I have great windows and a great location in my home office. So I built, to your point, Latoya, I didn't start with a home office. I was also at the kitchen table when COVID hit. So let's be clear about that. But this has evolved, and I do appreciate being able to have my own space that's mine, that sometimes, and I love the drive-bys that stop by and see me during the week. And when I'm in the office, I work a hybrid schedule 3 days in. I love those times. I love those people stopping in. There's a lot of great conversations, but it is a little tougher to get things done. Right. So, I mean, being home, I am able to just knock out more work that takes a lot of the focused work, the focused, concentrated work. It's a lot easier to do remote for me. So
I 100% agree with both of you. And yes,
I haven't made sourdough at 11 a.m. on a Monday yet. In fact, nobody would want me making sourdough ever. I
haven't baked anything since like 2021.
No.
The moment RTO entered the chat, I gave up on baking. I'm also a terrible baker, so let's be honest.
That wasn't me, but
of cooking skills during the pandemic. Actually, I really increased that. I was getting pretty good, and now I'm like, wow, now I'm fully. And I've joked with both of you and said this. First of all, Latoya, send me that link because I think I do want that Costco desk because mine.
Costco standing desk. We got
your affiliate link going, girl. And
that's
then
right.
I will say this though. I joke about this, but I as somebody now who is fully remote, I joke and say I think I'm too feral now to be back in the office full time anyway. It smells like my mouth, I don't know.
You'd have to put pants on, Marcy.
I would have to
okay?
actually
no,
put pants
no
on,
business mullets in the office.
I'm like, can I bring my sweatpants? But I really do say, I have to say this, my mindset and my energy is different since being fully remote. So I agree with you, Amy. I do like the collaboration in terms of in person, and I do try to do those when I can, especially if I have coaching clients that live locally to me. And obviously I love talking to the both of you, and I feel that there is benefit to being around people and that buzz, that energy you get. And when you work with people, but I will say this, I do now understand why people want to be remote. Like if I want to go for a walk, I go for a walk when I want. If I want to throw laundry in, I do that. If I want to take a call and walk around my neighborhood, or if I want to go get my nails done at 1:00 because I have a break, I go and do that. And I make my schedule work for me, and I'm still hella productive.
I love that for you.
I'm still hella productive. Like I'm doing multiple things at once and
No
showing
doubt.
that I'm successful doing that. So
Yep.
I do get it. So if you're someone who feels very passionate about being remote, there are companies out there that I think, or be an entrepreneur, you will be able to do this. But if you are applying to roles, you do have to understand that if a company is going to have a hybrid stance, then they are really going to reinforce that. And I would just say that don't hit apply and don't go there, because it is going to be difficult for you to renegotiate that on the back end. And we want to avoid our lovely friend LaToya for having to deal with stuff like that ever again. So please don't do that.
Please, no more RTO.
No
RTO
more.
Go away. I don't want to do this anymore.
We gotta get her out of this now. She's got to sunset.
Save LaToya from RTO.
Please set me free from the RTO world. So
gotta get you out.
Find where you feel like you could be the most successful.
Absolutely.
That's right. That's a great point. That's it right there.
Your decision.
Find the place where you can be most successful, whether that's in office 5 days a week, a hybrid schedule, a fully remote. You got to figure that out for you. So
absolutely.
I love that.
Well, I can't wait to hear more about these great stories, work from home hacks, go to products and game changers. I'm looking for my contract with Costco once I drop this.
That's right. It's coming.
And for those of you that are still in the fight with me, if you have any benchmarking tips, you drop those as well. We can keep the conversation going.
Yes, we can. HR Misfits on LinkedIn and Instagram. We'd love to hear from you guys. Have a good one.
Thanks for listening to HR Misfits, where people leadership gets real. If this conversation resonated with you, follow the show and subscribe wherever you watch or listen. And if you're a leader navigating complex, high-stakes people decisions, we're also building the HR Misfits Collective, a place for real counsel, not HR theater. You can find us online at www.thehrmisfits.com.